Hey, welcome back to 8 Rice Up. I'm your host, Ryan Rice, and this is my beautiful wife, Maida.
Welcome back again.
We have a very special episode this time. Today, we're actually going to be interviewing our producer, Phil. He's got an interesting story, and he actually has quite a bit in common with us. He hasn't gone through a spouse dying, but he has a different form of grief.
Yes. And it's actually very interesting because I have my oldest son and he deals with ADHD and ODD and autism. And that's what Phil, you have something similar, right?
So my son is exactly the same. I mean, he's nonverbal. He's a giant like your son. He's violent. You know, he has ADHD, extreme OCD. I think he has schizophrenia, but they're not going to diagnose him with that because he can't talk. So, you know, we've had all the doctors literally throw their hands up and be like, we've done all we can. Put him in a home. That's literally like the last conversation we had with a doctor. So yeah, it's extremely difficult to, live and function.
Yeah, and we were talking before. That takes quite a toll on just the relationship between you and your spouse when something like that happens, right? Because you've got all of this going on, especially with someone like that they require a lot of your time and attention, and with that, you just don't have the ability to go out and spend time with your wife like you used to, right? Like, can you speak to that a little bit, Phil?
There is no time. There literally is no time. So, we were just talking off camera, and when you have a child, you pay for daycare or any type of care, that alone costs an arm and leg, costs a job, really. So my wife, she stays home and take care of my son for the most part, so we don't have to pay for childcare. But here's the caveat, though. No one else can really watch him anyway. So no family can watch him. He can't communicate with people correctly. We understand what he's saying or not saying or his motions, but no one else will understand. And that's a huge fear for us because we can't go out and go watch a movie or something because I'm afraid that he's going to assault the person who's watching him. So that has literally kept us as prisoners, and we can't even be a couple. So that's a very big strain on our relationship, and I assume it's like that for you guys as well.
100%.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult, right? Like, because if you're not nurturing that relationship between you and your spouse, it slowly dies, right? What's not growing is dying, and that's just how it is, right? Like,
And it's so hard to find that balance,
right?
right? Like you have to find a balance of how are you going to be a good parent to your child and how are you going to be a good spouse. How do you even find that balance when you're also dealing with the problems that your child has and you want to be a good parent and you don't want to give up on them? And that's something that, that you sometimes you ask yourself, like, why me? Why do I have to go through this? And why does my son have to go through that?
Both of us have gone through that a lot. There's a lot of the questions and asking why, and then you go into these weird rabbit holes of investigating what was the cause for this, and then you have these conflicting answers, and then you're arguing with yourself. Was I eating something wrong, or during the pregnancy, did he fall? Did I accidentally hit him or something? And then you start to doubt yourself, and that's not a good road to go down because A, it won't fix anything for one, and B, it just makes you depressed. So I've had to do a lot of not blaming myself. I had to do a stop blaming myself, and my wife has still learning to not blame herself too when it comes to the reason why my son is the way he is, because we really don't have an answer. But even if we did have an answer, we can't go back on it. So
right. There is a lot of guilt. You go through a lot of guilt, and as a mom, you're the one that carry the baby, and you do ask yourself, what did I do for my child to turn this way? And it is sad because nobody's prepared for that. When I had Andrew, I mean, I didn't see any of that until he was maybe 3 or 4 years old.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Because with us, with us, he was fine. He was hitting all the certain milestones up until about 6 or 7 months, right? Then he started to bang his head on the ground. So he'd be doing the tummy time stuff, right? And then just start boom, 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 boom. I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing, kid? Like, stop. But that was his way of stimming. And, if you're in the autism community, you understand what stimming is. And so then it just started to get worse. And he would do the babbling talking. You're talking to him. He would mimic what you were saying. So you're like, okay, cool. He's reaching the milestones. Then like 6-7 months later, after like 6-7 months total, he would just regress, completely stopped. Didn't start talking. Didn't hit any milestones. Really started, he didn't crawl at all. So he went from barely moving to walking. So that was like, whoa, how did you just skip that whole thing? So we were like, yeah, rah, rah, rah. And he wasn't talking. And then his pediatrician at the time didn't mention autism or anything to us until he was around 18 months. And she's like, maybe you need to see somebody. And then I don't know, you are a minority just like I am. So you may not relate to this, but we are in denial when it comes to our kids and when they have issues. Like, no. Let's just pray it away or forget about it. So the Black community is like that too. So we were in denial heavy for a good while. And then it was just a time we had to go get a test done. And then he showed out, like my son showed out, like with the attitude. And I think that God was allowing him to do that just so we can understand that he needed to do this so they could diagnose him.
Right. And
so that was a huge eye-opening, awakening moment that, wow, okay, our child is different. So that was a big learning experience. And I'm sure you went through that too, Maida.
Yeah, no, and in that moment, I mean, you grieve. You grieve the person that they could have been. And especially that young is all of a sudden that switch just turns off all of a sudden, and you don't understand, and you don't wanna believe that there is something wrong with them. I went through the exact same thing, and a lot of family were like, no, there's absolutely nothing wrong.
He needs more discipline.
And
oh my God,
yes,
that is
yes,
the worst.
I was judged so much because they were telling me, you're being such a bad mom. You are not disciplining your kid. There's nothing wrong with him. How do you deal with that? Like it's so hard. It's so hard because then you start blaming yourself and you're like, well, so does he have something, or maybe it's just me and people are seeing something else? And not many people understand that. Not many people are educated enough to understand what is to have a kid like that. And there's a lot of books that you can learn, you can research, you can whatever. But as a parent, you really do learn at home with your child. And you're always going to be a parent, no matter what they do. You're always going to love them. It's the people outside your circle that you don't know how they're going to react to them. And you got to protect them from the world. I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, we had to definitely isolate ourselves from the noise, because you had all these different perspectives, right? Of people who don't know anything. So they're just saying, oh, have you tried this? No, your one singular idea, that's it. That's going to fix them. You are the smartest person on the planet. But you want to be empathetic because they're trying to help. Yep. And I'm sure you guys have dealt that with when you guys lost your spouses, is that all of the people trying to help, but then you just isolate yourself because you don't want to deal with it because they don't know what they're talking about. And so we've had to isolate ourselves because A, they just don't understand, and B, we don't want their opinion. Honestly, we just kind of screw it. We don't want your opinion. I've separated myself from my family. Like my mom and my sister, I've only seen my son one time, and he's going to be 12 this year. So, you can kind of gather information from that. But yeah, the one thing that you hit the nail on the head is that we grieve who we thought that they would be. My son is severely autistic, so he will always need to have care his entire life, right? He won't be able to drive, have a family, all that stuff. So that weighs heavy on my mind because, when pregnant, you're like, yeah, I have all these aspirations. I still save toys from when I was a kid that I plan on giving to my son. I still have them. He don't care about them.
Yeah.
But, I want him to kind of, have the same past that I did. And, now we have to adjust to that. And that's a real big issue with us. Cause now I'm like, well, my legacy ends with him, and so that's a really hard and difficult point to deal with. So
It's really hard to swallow. It's really hard to swallow. And you do want to be the best parent still. You still want to be the best that there could ever be for them. And sometimes we judge ourselves so much because we don't know what we're doing. We're learning as we go. We go with the flow and we learn with them. And I think for me, it's such an honor really to be the mother of my son, Andrew, because he's actually teaching me a lot. He's teaching me patience and he's teaching me a lot of faith and strength. He is so strong. And there's some times where I see happiness. He sees happiness in things that I don't see happiness. And sometimes when he has those episodes of he's really mad and angry and whatnot, and and I remember I love my baby and he will always be my baby and I will always treat him like my baby. I protect my baby no matter what. And he teaches me that. And I think I'm a better person because of him.
does Andrew understand what happened to your husband?
He understands to a point. He understands that he died. But it was really hard for him at the beginning. Like at the hospital, he was opening his eyes.
Oh no.
And he's like, Dad, you're playing. You're totally playing. You're totally faking it. And so he tried to open up his eyes. And his eyes were 100% yellow because all of his organs had stopped functioning. And for him, that was a huge trauma. So, and to this point, he still believes that after 3 years that he's going to come back somehow.
So he was never able to really grieve,
No,
right?
No.
Or mourn.
no.
How do you even teach a child like that? Really? Because so I tell my wife this too. It's like if something ever happens to me, he's gonna be like, he ain't here. He's not gonna know. And it's for those watching, please don't flame me in the comments here, but I almost find a little solace in that because he won't be heartbroken if something happened to me. I know that's not a perfect answer, but it's true.
It is true to a point, because he might not understand what happened, but in his own little world, I think it will hit him somehow, but nobody will understand.
Right.
Because he's nonverbal. Andrew is very much verbal, too much.
Too much.
And he misses his dad like crazy, and he just doesn't get it. To the fact that I got married, he's like, why would you be cheating on dad? And so it makes it's complicated. It's a whole nother level of complication there because he knows that like he passed away, but he's not really gone somehow, and he's gonna come back and he's gonna see me married to another man. And so he doesn't get it that way.
Ryan, how's your relationship with him?
It's touch and go, definitely touch and go. If he likes me, it's good.
Yeah.
If he doesn't like me, it's not so good.
But he understands that you're married to his mother.
No,
Okay.
he doesn't get that
So
because
who are you to him? In his point of view.
I'm just a placeholder at the moment, right? Like we actually sat down with him and we're like, well, I'm going to be here and I'm going to try to prepare you for when you meet your dad again or whenever he comes back. And that way, like I'm going to teach you how to drive. I'm going to try to get you through school. I'm going to try to be there for when your dad's not. So then we can pass you off to your mom and your dad eventually. But yeah, 100%. He's like, Mom, you're not married. You're married to Dad. You're not married to Ryan.
Right.
It just doesn't click in his head. So the fact that we live together, he doesn't like.
So do you guys show affection to each other when you're around him, or how does that dynamic work?
We tried. It's neutral. We try not to a lot, right? And we even when we go on dates, if we get to,
we can't call them dates.
We can't call it a date.
Mm-hmm. Our babysitter told him one time, he came downstairs and he's like, "Oh, where's mom? Where's my mom? Oh, her and Ryan are on a date." He's like, "She's dating," and it didn't make sense in his head. He's like, "How could my mom be dating?" And so we can't say we're dating.
No,
Right.
it's a companionship, and I told
Right.
him it makes him feel better to know that it's more of a companionship until one day we're reunited with his dad.
Right. Because I'm not trying to replace his dad, right? Nobody can replace Tyler. I think that's impossible. And trying to get him to understand that and say, "Hey, we're just here, we're friends, like we're just trying to get through this life." But nobody's replacing him. Nobody's like, "You're still your dad's son." And it's definitely challenging to explain that.
Right, and for you, seeing some of the tantrums that children like him can throw, I mean, I imagine it's really hard for you because you're not used to that.
Right. Yeah. I have a brother who has a learning disability, and he doesn't get violent. He is autistic. He doesn't get violent like that. He's verbal, but he's pretty high functioning. Yeah. When he gets violent, when Andrew gets violent, it's very, very different because the appropriate response is to step back and watch. But I mean, if he's getting too violent and hurting somebody, what do you do?
Yeah.
Right.
So
And
how do you discipline him anyway, though? If he doesn't see you as an authority figure, he doesn't.
oh, I don't. Yeah. There's no way for me to discipline him. That's 100% Mida.
But physically, y'all are the same height, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you kind of have to, though.
I can't. There's absolutely no way for me to discipline Andrew. That's 100% his mom or grandparents. That's his family.
Yeah, and that's something that we're totally figuring out because it's tough. It's tough because he doesn't see you as an authority figure, and two, he doesn't see you as a friend. He doesn't trust you as a friend yet. I think you guys were beginning to, and and to make it clear, he's not violent where he hurts people, but he does get mad at me, right? He will yell at me and be like, "What are you doing, Mom?" and whatnot.
To
right?
be fair, like touching you with your fibromyalgia hurts you.
Yeah.
But he's not like mentally, he's not trying to hurt you.
No,
He's like, "No, I love my
no.
mom," and he doesn't understand
No,
his own strength
he
with
likes
you.
he likes to grab me and push me around and whatnot,
Right.
but he doesn't do it with the intentions of hurting me or anything
Right.
like that. And he's really good with his brothers, but he just doesn't get it. He doesn't get it, and he wants all the attention for him because he was an only child for 10 years.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, his dad dies. I have 2 kids, and I get remarried, and you add 3 more kids to the family, and it's hard. It's hard. Like really, the burden right now, it's all on me with Andrew.
Right.
Just because you need to understand, and you're doing therapy for this to be able to cope with a child like Andrew and be able to be his parent.
Right. Yeah. Because you definitely can't treat him like a normal kid, right? So normal things don't work. But yeah, no, that's 100% why I'm trying to work with the specialist, and I'm like, "Hey, how do I deal with this kid that he doesn't understand the way most people do?" Right? Like what's the appropriate response in this situation? Or
And it's really hard because you're not his biological dad, and
Right.
and sometimes as a widow, because I feel like a widow is always a widow no matter if she gets remarried. How do you are you ever? And what I wonder is because it's so hard for other people to love children like this, and that's why, like Phil was saying, we seclude ourselves from even family members, and that was something that I was really scared of. It was that is this person, right, the person that I get married to? Well, I wasn't planning on that, but when we were getting to that point, I was worried, like, are you gonna be able to love him the same way that I love him?
Right.
And that's something that you gotta be open to. It's something that you do sign up to, right?
Yep.
How do your children handle Andrew?
So they're pretty young, right? Mine are 9, 7, and 4. They like Andrew because mentally they're about the same age. So they love playing together. They play with their little toys and stuff. They love hanging out until Andrew wakes up and just decides, I don't like them anymore. And then it gets tough because everything is about him somehow, right? Like you whisper something and he's like, they're talking about me. Or, my daughter she's a girl. She's going to be moody sometimes, or she's hungry, or he takes it personally. She doesn't like me. I'm just like, no, that's not the case. But yeah, it's the kids, all the 5 younger kids do really well with Andrew. It's just when he doesn't like somebody, he doesn't like somebody, and there's nothing you can do to change his mind.
He decides that he doesn't like somebody, or he feels offended for some reason, right?
Yep.
All of a sudden he feels offended, and he doesn't know how to cope with it. And so I have to be able to explain to him what's going on, and say, no, this is not how it is, and we love you, But
Yep.
he's 15, and the other kids, we're talking about, they're 9, 7, 4, and 2.
Yep.
There's such a huge gap, and he's 2 years behind socially. So it can be really hard. When they're playing together, it's such a miracle, and it's all nice, and I'm like, wow, we're a family. But when he can't do it, and sometimes he can't deal with himself, and I think sometimes he knows that there's something wrong with him, because he's told me, Mom, why am I different? And that for me is so hard to hear, because
Wow.
he understands that there is something different with him.
What do you tell him?
I said that I always tell him, you're good, you're perfect. There's nothing wrong with you. And then I try to explain the ADHD thing, and I say, do you know that Michael Phelps, or is it Michael Phelps? Michael Phelps, or whatever.
And Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, they all have ADHD. There's a lot of people that are very successful.
All successful
out there.
people have ADHD. That's what makes them so successful, because they can do 17 things at once.
Yeah, yeah. And so I try to tell him about that. We with the autism part, like, he understands it, but not very well. And we're actually, just like you feel like, I'm still kind of in denial, because with the autism and my husband passing away, I see some things, and then I see some don't make any sense.
Yo, don't wrap your head around that, because you'll never figure it out. Because my son could be something. He could be brilliant in something, or he can understand something like that. But when it comes to talking, or if I tell him to go grab something, he'll pretend that what?
Yeah.
I'm like, bro. But if I say the word Cheerios or something, he'll come running from the other room.
Yeah.
So you'll never figure that out. So
No.
don't even try.
It's so hard, though, right? It's so hard. Like, sometimes you try to put the puzzles together, and you're like, all the pieces, and it just doesn't make any sense. So it is hard as a mom. It is hard. And I've had, how many people have tested him? Because I'm like, can we just retest and see if there's something else? Because and right now he's actually being retested again.
What are you testing for? Like genetics testings, or what?
No, so they're doing. We already did the genetics test.
They ain't find nothing, right?
No,
Yep.
they didn't find anything. They never find anything.
Nope, they never do. They
And-
tested you too, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. They find nothing.
They don't find anything, and so right now they're going through the whole process again to see what he has, all together.
We so hot take here, but we almost were like, we hope they find something, because then we can treat it. But when they tell us they can't find anything, we're like, crap, So my son has he gets MRIs every year on his brain, because he has a very, very small cyst on the back of his brain. Doctor said there's nothing wrong with it and just ignore it, but I'm not accepting that.
Yeah, you don't accept that.
Yeah.
There's no way you can accept that.
Yeah.
I actually, that's the last thing I want to do on Android, or one of the things that I'm planning is for him to get MRIs in his brain, because we haven't gotten there to that point, and I really want to do that to see what's going on, and to actually be able to give him some medication and know, okay, if you have this, then let's do this. I hate it how we've tried so many things and nothing works.
Yeah, we even did the blood test to see what medications would work most efficiently. But with Dominic, he also has a paradoxical effect with medication, some of them. So whatever the intended result is, it's going to be the opposite. So that's even a bigger hurdle to have to deal with. But I wanted to ask you this. So I feel that the autism community is probably one of the most divided communities out there, because it's such a vast spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel that the autism that's displayed in the media, that people talk about is the fluffy kind. Like this part of autism that we deal with, they don't talk about as much.
No.
So when I hear parents say, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with my kid," or "I don't want a cure for autism," and then they try and tell me that, I show them. I was like, "So what are you gonna do when your son puts his head through a glass window? You don't want to cure that, you know? What do you do when he scratches the skin off of your hands? You don't think that's a cure? Or what are you gonna do when he's sitting there trying to pull his skin off? You think that's fine?"
Yeah.
You know, and so I feel like the autism community has the biggest division because people are putting their experiences on yours and not they don't have empathy for the stuff that you go through because no one talks about it.
Right.
Media doesn't talk about this side of autism. They only talk about the Elon Musk side or the high functioning or like, oh, they're just quirky. They just do something.
Yeah.
And if you talk to people and ask them about autism, that's the autism that they know. Yeah. They don't think that it's like what we deal with at all. So then that's when they say, oh, he just needs discipline. Oh, he just needs that. Or don't give him yellow number 5 or something. You know, so
Right.
oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous, and I feel like something that needs to be also that I want to say is that some of the medications that I gave Andrew growing up, I mean, the struggles that he went through, all the side effects. I mean, there was one pill, I don't remember the name of it, but he was pulling his hair out, and I'm like, is this him or the medicine? And then you have to figure it out, and then you go through so many medications, and you don't even know if they're hurting them even more. And you, Ryan, you worked for a pharmaceutical company.
I did for a while.
Didn't you tell me that they would pick and choose what side effects they would put on pills? Like
to a point, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Say what?
Yeah.
yeah.
To
say
a
it.
point, yeah. You can kind of pick and choose what side effects there are.
Wait,
Like
hold up.
you can't make a perfect pill.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, right, you can say, oh, this compound is probably going to have this side effect.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about we're only going to list on the bottle these certain side effects.
No.
Oh,
Okay,
no.
No.
Okay, I get you.
No.
No, I'm talking about manufacturing like the perfect pill. Obviously, that would be bad for business.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there was a pill with no side effects, I mean, why make that? You can do a pill that has a side effect, and I got a pill for that, but it's got a side effect. And I got another pill for that, and it's got a side effect.
And that, dude, let me tell you, we don't want to overly medicate our children because we know that there's side effects.
Right.
But there's got to be like, well, is he worse off with nothing? You know what I'm saying? Because so like we have to give him an antipsychotic. We have to give them melatonin to fall asleep. Have to give them medical marijuana to chill. You know what I'm saying? And then we have to give him Provera to stop with his humping. You know, and so like it's literally like I feel sometimes that what we're giving him is worse than him just having autism. But we tried the know nothing thing, and that's when he put his head through a window. So
That's so hard. That's so hard. I mean, as a parent, just watching that and knowing that and accepting that, it's just so hard. Yep. It's so hard as a mom and as a dad. It is really hard. And for me, I mean, knowing that I have you, but you're just barely getting used to this whole thing because your brother with his autism was different.
He wasn't like that. Yeah, he was.
Right.
My brother is very quiet, very kind of reserved. Just wants to be left alone. If you leave him alone, he's fine.
Did you know about that type of autism before you met Andrew, or did you just assume that it was like what you had with your brother?
No, I knew about it because my late wife's cousin has autism, and yeah, it kind of runs in the family, right? But the autism I was familiar with wasn't super violent, right? They were usually like high functioning, like you're weird, you're quirky, right? But it wasn't like the dark side of it. Yeah.
I worry. So my biggest fear, my son is very large, and yours is too. You know, and you're a minority, so you'll fall into this category too. So my biggest fear is that when he's out with his mom, he'll have a tantrum or something will trigger him, and he does his rage stuff. And my wife maybe not be able to get a handle of it. If he starts to assault her or something, you know, somebody's going to see that. They're going to call the police. You know, the police are going to come. They see somebody assaulting somebody, especially a large person assaulting a woman. They're going to react the way that they're trained to react. And my son can't comply or listen to you or respond. And then you can kind of assume what will happen after that. right? So that's one of my biggest fears. And there was a situation to where my wife was at the grocery store and he was doing his thing. And luckily it was down the street. So I left here and I went to the grocery store. He was calmed down already. But there were two cops at the grocery store. Not because of him, they were just shopping, right? So I was like, oh, opportunity. So I walked over to them and said, hey, y'all come here for a second. Like, they're like, okay, right? So I brought him over and I said, hey, this is my son Dominic. He's nonverbal. He's very violent. He has this, and this. I need you to be familiar with his face and his situation in case you get called so you don't kill him. That's literally the conversation I have with him in the grocery store. Because this is the same area, so you may get called. So it's like, don't kill my son. I don't ever want to have that conversation, but you need to have that conversation because it's real.
Yep.
So I bet you worry about that too.
Oh, all the time, all the time. I worry, and not just with with the cops, but with family because they don't know how to deal with them, and I believe that growing up, both sides of the family. I think my family were a little bit more empathetic because my mom is a psychologist and my sister is a psychologist, and so they were a little bit more nice about it. But the other family were not. They were not. They did not believe in anything like that. They're like, oh, it's just discipline issues, and I always worried that I had to be protecting Andrew from people, just because they thought that he was a bad kid. And that word always comes out. Oh, you're just a bad kid, and he's not. They're not bad. They don't know what they're doing. And I feel like with Andrew, losing his dad made him even worse. He doesn't know how to cope with grief. He doesn't know what's going on. All he knows is that all of a sudden his dad's gone. His mom got married, and he has 5 siblings, right? And he doesn't know. He doesn't know how to do it. And and Ryan is trying to help him, and you're trying to get to know him and whatnot, but it's never gonna be the same. And that's something that I'm also scared with Ryan and that's why you're doing therapy, right? Is for you to be able to cope with him when he's throwing those tantrums, because I don't want a situation to come to where like he will tell you, oh, let's punch each other or whatever, and I'm like, Anders doesn't know what he's saying, and I don't want him to say that to anybody, because if you don't know how to deal with it, he can get in so much trouble, like very easy. He's an easy target to be thrown in jail for sure.
Yeah, and the police and authorities are not empathetic in those situations because they just don't know. So can't blame them, but there's more training. Barbers have more training than police officers. So I mean, my son has he's only had one barber, right, his entire life. My son is 11, and this guy, he's like his second dad. You know what I'm saying? My son actually will sit and get his hair cut. I couldn't even do that. You know what I'm saying? So these guys have more training than the police are. But I don't want to be sad. I want to ask you this question that could make you happy. For us parents, we kind of the little milestones are what matter to us a lot. So I want to ask you, do you have one of those smaller moments that Andrew went through where you're like, oh man, this was great?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Can you give me an example?
Yes. So when my husband died, he was actually comforting me, and I feel like it was a moment where his brain, and I say like his brain connected and somehow got connected, and there all the wires. And he was actually, Andrew can be very eloquent in the way that he speaks. And he was telling me, like, no, Mom, God is with us. We're not alone. We're going to be okay. We're going to be just fine. Dad is still here. I can feel him. And I mean, he was comforting me to a level that nobody could comfort me, because at that moment there's nothing that can comfort you. And the last person that I thought that was going to comfort me was him, and he just sounded so like there's absolutely nothing wrong with him. And I was like, wow, he's very smart. And when I asked him about his faith. He is actually a very faithful child. He's very smart. He has his testimonies very firm, and he knows what he believes in, and that's what makes me proud as a mom. Because I'm like, well, at least I'm doing something right. He knows that God exists, and that he's not alone. And he prays. He prays every night, and I think that's one of the reasons that he keeps moving forward. But it's, I mean, it's hard for him, because he knows and he recognizes that there's something wrong with him, and it's hard for him, the fact that I had to, that I'm moving forward with life, because I think we have to, and it's a good thing to be moving forward. But when Andrew makes me proud is when it comes down to, let's be real about this, that we're fine, and God is not gonna leave us alone.
Yeah, I think for me, the one of the things. So my son's nonverbal, right? So this one time I was feeding him pizza. Oh, and by the way, the easiest thing about autism is eating for him, because he eats the same three things. That's it, every day. All right, we don't have to search to cook something different. You're eating this or that. You're cool with it. Awesome. Anyway, I was feeding him some pizza, right? Only Domino's Pizza, sponsor the show. Only Domino's Pizza, and I'm feeding it to him, and he looked at me, and he literally said this word for word. He said, "No want no more." I looked at him. I was like, "Okay," and he just got up and left. I'm like, "You had that in you?" Like, he got up and just walked away. And I'm just sitting there shocked, like, oh my God, my baby did it, So, when I see people talking about, oh, my son hit a home run or did excelled in school, I'm like, my son said he didn't want pizza anymore. So I'm like, that's a win for me.
That's a big deal. I honestly think that these children are so special, and that there's something in them. I mean, I can see it, I can feel it. I don't know if it's because I love children, and that's why I wanted to have more kids. I'm happy having a big family. It is hard with Andrew, because I wish I could just be there for him, just for himself, and pay attention 100% just to him. But there is something special about these children, and I think deep down inside they recognize us as their parents, and they know and they love us, and I don't know, they're just these tiny little miracles, or mercy from God, right? Little mercies that get thrown at us, and we do feel that those small things like that, like simple things like that, even him playing soccer or playing basketball and almost making it, or actually making it, is such a huge accomplishment for us parents. And I think they're in our lives for a purpose. There's a purpose that I have Andrew, and I think, I don't know, putting all the pieces together, because I'm always over analyzing, like, the whys of things. I understand, if I didn't have Andrew, I call him the highlight of my life. I I I don't know. I don't know what I would do, because sometimes I get strength from him. He teaches me to be a better person, because he's teaching me all this patience and all this, how to empathize with others, because of the things that he goes through. He's a target to be bullied, a very easy target to be bullied. So he has to be homeschooled, and he has, some learning disabilities here and there, and not many people know how to teach him. And I and sometimes I say, maybe it is better with how the world is so crazy right now. Maybe God is protecting him from something worse that could have happened if he was normal. Who knows? Maybe he would have been with Tyler dying. He would have gone in, fallen into drugs, doing drugs, or alcohol, or who knows what. But instead, here he is, and he's with me, and he's a very healthy boy in that sense, right? That he doesn't have any what do you call them?
Any vices?
Any vices. And so I am grateful for that, but at the same time, I mean, I do wish that he didn't have to go through all of that. And I wish that he was there for me in moments where I actually need, and he looks so much like his dad, and they have the same voice, and I'm like, oh my gosh, come here, let me just hug you. And he's gonna be as tall as his dad. He's very tall, and I mean it's hard at the same time, but at the same time I'm grateful that he's not out there doing who knows what. I don't know if you think about that. I know your kid is 12.
He'll be 12 this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that we like to keep him home because he likes to run. So I don't want him, and I just don't want people to not judge us. I don't give a darn if they judge us. Just that I don't want them reacting as if he's doing something wrong or calling the police over not understanding. That's my fear. I don't care if they stare. I don't care if they take a video of him and then post it on social media. He'll never know. He won't understand.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. He can't be bullied because he doesn't understand what that is.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe there's a little bit of silver lining in that. But I still would like for him to have somewhat of a social life. He doesn't know what birthdays are, holidays.
And that's hard.
Christmas.
That is so hard.
I legitimately feel like his childhood was robbed, and I tell people that he was robbed of his childhood. And that we were talking off camera. My wife wants to have another kid, and I think that's one of the reasons why too, because we didn't do it this time around, and for that to be it, okay, so I feel for you guys. I feel for all the parents out there who are dealing with this. You're not by yourself. There's a community, but just if you're in the community, just don't put your experiences on other people. Everybody has unique experiences, and be empathetic to their not struggles, but to their experience.
It's all very unique. It's all very unique, and that's why the spectrum is huge. It's huge, and it's really hard. You do grieve your kids, and then like you're saying, Phil, like you do feel like they're like I was telling Ryan, his teenager years are being robbed from him. His childhood was robbed from him. His dad is not even with him, and now he has to go through that. Like, why make his life even more complicated? But at the same time, there's some tender mercies that we see along the way, and I think that there's a purpose and there's a reason why they're like this, and there's something that we learn from it, that we have to learn from it, right? There's something, and I'm still trying to figure it out and trying to learn and educate myself on all of that. But it is tough. It is really hard, and I think all of our emotions as parents are very, very valid. And I wish the best for parents that are dealing with children like this. They're very special, and I think they're here for a reason. And if you're a parent that have a child like this, like I know sometimes you may not see it, but I have talked to parents where they have lost their kids, to suicide, or accidents or whatever, and they're like, I wish that my kid was here yelling or being his annoying self, right? And not gone. And so I am grateful that my son is alive, and I'd rather have him like how he is right now than have him gone. And I want to just be the best parent, and I want to honor that title as a parent by being the best that I can be for him and teaching him and giving him a good example.
Well, I think you're doing a phenomenal job, the both of you guys.
You are too.
You
are too. So I appreciate you guys joining us and just being here with us. This is another form of grief, right? And
I've never had this conversation before.
Well, I was going to say
never did.
It goes through all the same motions, right? Like you go through denial, you go through anger, you go through right. Eventually, you get to acceptance, and you're like, right, like you said, Phil, you can't go down the rabbit hole of, well, why did this happen, or what did I do? When you start blaming yourself, and then eventually you have to get to forgiving yourself and just acceptance, and you're like, you know what, it is what it is. How do I help him? How do I protect him? How do I keep him safe? And how do we move forward through this? And it, even though it's something that honestly probably will never change, right? That's life. Like you got to move through it. right?
Yep.
You
And
just
it's-
gotta believe, and you gotta
Yeah.
believe. I feel like the future is bright. The
Right.
future is bright.
Well, there's a reason they are the way they are, right? They're special and they're unique, and yeah, there's a reason.
Yeah, no, I'm
There's a
honored to be
purpose.
his mom. I'm really honored to be his mom with all the trials that we go through. I feel so honored, and I am very grateful that I am his mom, and that I get to raise him into the best human that he could possibly be, and I have faith that God knows what he's doing, and he has a plan for him too, and that's it. Like, you just move forward. You move forward with it.
Yeah. But yeah, you're not alone. So that's what we wanted to leave you guys with, and we will catch you on the next episode of 8 Rice Up.